Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Blended Garden. I'm so excited. I am here today with someone who is very special to me. I'll give him some time to introduce himself, but you all know on this platform, I love to bring people together that are of different backgrounds, different lifestyles, different walks of life. We think differently, we live differently, but yet we come together by one accord. We have something that is in common. So I'm really excited. His name is, I call him Maestre Ombrino, and I'll let him explain that a little bit more. And he is the founder of, and I want to make sure I'm saying this right. He is the founder of New York Mindful Capoeira. So usually on my platform, I like to talk about how I meet the people that I interview. And I met Maestre through my son, Kyle. Kyle was going through a really rough time physically, having a hard time just being in a classroom where everyone was expected to sit all day. And that was just not his makeup. And so I found you, Maestre. I found you actually online. And this was how many years ago, maybe 10 years ago? He was maybe 5 or 6.
I would say 10.
Yeah, so it's been a while. And I'll say this, when I first found your school and I took him for the first time, I got lost. And I remember I was calling the school saying, I can't find it. And I think you gave me directions. And for a split second, I almost went home, because that is how anxious I was about bringing him into a new environment, not knowing if he would be included, not knowing if the people there would understand his need to really move. And when I brought him, I felt like I have found my Mecca for him, because it was first of all, there were so many different people from different races. I love that part of it. But I saw how you all were so welcoming to all the children, and you used movement to celebrate them, and not just any movement, capoeira. And I don't know if you know this, Maestre, but I took capoeira in college. By a fluke. Yeah, I was in a dance company and I took a capoeira class. And so I thought, capoeira, that sounds good. Let's try that. And it has been so wonderful since. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Maestre. And so tell us a little bit about yourself, about the school. There's so much history of the school, but also history of the actual technique.
Well, good morning, Jahida, and all of our...
Maestre always calls me Jahida. I'm sorry. And it's okay. We're close, so how he pronounces my name is so fine. It's always Jahida, but I say, my lawyer calls me Jahida. It's fine. I don't care.
Well, I got that. It'll be Jahida from now on.
We have a relationship, and that's what matters.
Okay. Well, I can also pronounce your name, and we can keep our relationship. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for providing this podcast for people to connect and to be reinforced in our common mission for humanity and for dignity for all people. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad to be able to be a part of it, and I'd love to connect to more people too. It's been my life passion. So I guess I'll start at the beginning. I grew up in Teaneck, New Jersey. Our family moved there when I was 5 years old because it was a mixed community. It was actually the first school system to be integrated, and my parents loved that idea. Mm-hmm. And I grew up, I get my first day in class in first grade, and then in second grade and third grade and so forth. I was a kid that rebelled a lot. Mm-hmm. There was something that didn't seem right for me about sitting in a chair and at a desk, mm-hmm. and listening to somebody up front who was just talking about things. And for me, I wanted to play outside. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to explore the backyards and the woods and the swamps and everything like that, which I did after school. That's what I did after school. Right. So I remember walking into class on the first day and just looking around the room, and in the back of the room are usually the so-called bad kids.
The bad kids, right? The troublemakers.
Yeah, well, they're the kids that just resisted. They're the resistors.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons, those were the kids that immediately we would lock eyes. And at that age, you just smile, you run in the back, and you're instantly friends.
Mm-hmm.
So all of my friends growing up were all of the different kids that I guess we can call them the resistors.
Mm-hmm.
That pushed boundaries, that were not able to sit still. And I first came to capoeira when I moved to San Francisco after college. So some of my early passions in life were animals. I loved animals. And what I loved about animals, I guess, was just being out in the woods, being out in nature,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing living beings behave in ways that were unpretentious. And so it's all coming to me as we speak. So this is a great opportunity to explore things in a new light.
Mm-hmm.
And then another passion of mine, was early passion as a kid, was anthropology. You know, you see these people on TV and it's like, wow, these people are awesome. They're making arrows, they're dancing, they're celebrating, they're having families, and they're close. They have fires at night, you know, things like that for a kid that, like, wow, I don't have that.
Right.
So
And people we would never see walking down the street. Just to piggyback on what you're saying, when I was a kid, I used to look at go through the magazines of National Geographic, and I was intrigued with the pygmy people. And yeah, it just brings up something, and you're like, who are these other people from a completely different place? So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and living lives that were full of adventure, or for them, it's more about survival, and you know, but they were singing from the heart and dancing from the heart, and they were gathering and hunting for their own food, building their own houses, you know. And I was going to school and supposed to sit at a desk, do homework, things like that. But I also just love the freedom that the people seem to have in terms of interacting, and as I said, another passion of mine was anthropology, and I wanted to go live in different places and be with the people. So somewhere around high school, I got a job working at the American Museum of Natural History, and I was working in anthropology, and I started to realize these people go and they travel and they live other places, but most of their time they're reading and writing and reading and writing, publish and perish. And at college too, I found out that all of my interests professionally mostly turned into publish or perish, you know, animals and anthropology. So somewhere in there, I kind of didn't have that same passion, but traveling and living with other people and all of that was still alive for me, but it was kind of hidden for a while. After college, I discovered capoeira. So I moved to San Francisco, and I had heard about capoeira from some friends in Boston that were collecting music from all around the world, mostly African music and Andean Indian music. But their biggest, they had records, like hundreds and hundreds of records, just stuff that you would never find anymore, of traditional roots African music. And I fell in love with that. They put music on a tape for me. And one of the pieces of music on the tape was capoeira music, and I had never heard that. So I asked them what it was, and they said, "Oh, you never heard of capoeira?" I said, "No." And they said, "Oh, it's this martial art, and the Africans in Brazil fight upside down with razor blades in their toes." So I never forgot that. I said, "That sounds pretty cool. I never heard of that."
That's resistant.
Yeah, this is like over 40 years ago. So they had heard about capoeira before anybody here really knew what it was. And when I moved to San Francisco after college, I took a walk on my first day in the neighborhood, and at the cultural center there, Mission Cultural Center, there was a sign that talked about the capoeira class. I said, "Oh, I remember that thing." And the description said, you know, Afro-Brazilian martial art, disguised as a dance created by African people in Brazil. And they have a bid-and-bow instrument like a bow. So I was like, okay, I got to go to that. And the next day I showed up at class, and there were some young people there, as women and men, beautiful bodies, different people. And not only were they all moving and playing together and moving so beautifully, I remember the moves on the ground and the kicks on the ground, and they were smiling, and every one of them turned and said, "Hi, welcome, come join us."
That's what I felt when I first came to your school?
So that's inherently a part of most capoeira schools.
Mhm.
And it's something that is one of the best, one of the most amazing things about capoeira is the international community, the welcoming and inclusive community in capoeira. So they welcomed me into the class, and the master showed up, and he was like a guru. That's his stories and how he moved and how he played, the wisdom that was just coming from this man, and the respect people had. And I just never stopped. So I trained in San Francisco for a year, and then moved to New York City. And the first two teachers to bring capoeira outside of Brazil was Mestre Gelon in New York and Laudermill in New York, Mestre Laudermill in New York, and then Mestre Cordeon in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So I trained with all three of those people, those mestres. And then I had committed that I got to go to Brazil. I got to go to the source.
Yeah.
So our school was connected with a group in Rio. So I went to Rio, but I went to Bahia to discover the source,
mm-hmm.
The roots of the capoeira. And over time, I realized that the more traditional practice of capoeira was more what called tumi.
Tumi?
So, what's that?
Can you repeat that? It's called tumi?
No, the called to me.
It called to you. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying certain.
Yeah. So there's all different kinds of styles of capoeira, just like everything. Like people are diverse. Right. The practices of capoeira are very diverse.
Right.
I'm not that familiar with other martial arts, but there's a diversity in capoeira that I don't see in other practices as much, right? So I trained in Bahia. That's the source where capoeira is accredited for originating the art form, and it was so diverse. And I loved that it was so diverse. You not only see the best, you see the worst,
and everyone's welcome.
And everyone's welcome. And you see a lot of the elders also. And you see the elder masters playing young people, and just with simple moves, just outplaying them and pinning them and sweeping them and just taking control of the roda with such simplicity. I was just like, oh man, that is the coolest thing. So over a year, I lived in Salvador. And after training with so many people and going to so many events, every day practicing, I ended up choosing Grandmaster No to be my mestre moving forward. So my first mestre was Mestre Cordeon, who's a student of Mestre Bimba. He's in San Francisco, a great mestre, alive and well today. My second mestre when I moved to New York was Mestre Gelon, and he's well and he's alive today. And then in Brazil, I met Grandmaster No, and I chose to have him as my mestre and guiding light, for the long haul. Because I wanted to do capoeira all my life. And I felt that Mestre No had the wisdom and the experience and the style of capoeira that was going to take me for a whole life, So he's now my mestre. I'm going to go see him in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
He's doing a big encounter. And we've been working with him since I met him in 1985. So he's been the teacher and the grandmaster of our group.
And your group is, not to cut you off, but I do want to talk about your group as far as you focus a lot on children here in the school. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good. I came back from Brazil even more in love with capoeira before, and I was like, this is going to be wonderful in the schools. I started capoeira when I was 21. I had to finish college to have my first class. So I thought, wow, imagine if I started when I was 5 or 6 or 12. So I thought, wow, schools would love this. And with Mestre Gelon in New York, we did some shows in the schools. And there were times where he was called in to do workshops with children. So I said, wow, I bet the schools would love a permanent capoeira teacher. So I came from Brazil with the mission of doing that as my work, because I was working as a chef in a catering company. I was working also in an after-school program just as a recreational teacher, and I wanted to do capoeira all the time.
Yeah.
So I approached. I had been working in an alternative high school for at-risk youth in the East Village that was Satellite Academy as a math teacher. So when I quit that in 1987, I moved to Brazil from 87 to 1988. And I came back. I just want to do capoeira. So I got a job at an alternative high school in the Bronx and at another high school in the Bronx Regional High School, as a full-time teacher teaching capoeira.
That's awesome.
So I was teaching at two high schools, and these were, children, youth from teenagers, not children, from the Bronx. And the school loved it, and the kids loved it. And after 2 years of teaching in the high schools, I decided that I wanted to live as a teaching artist and reach more children around the city, and not just be in two high schools, because in the high schools, there were about a dozen kids that were really into the capoeira. And then the rest were just like, it's something they didn't really want to do over and over and over and over again. They liked it, everybody respected it. But I had a dozen kids that were really committed. I wanted to have those kids all over the city.
That's right. So and I'm just going to interrupt you, because I know that you not only teach, but you teach children how to teach. And you've been taking Kyle with you to schools, and he's been teaching children. And I think that's just like in the book, how flowers they reseed and they grow, and then those flowers grow and they reseed and they bring people in. And so it's like you have this momentum of teaching children how to teach, or teaching youth how to teach, just sharing it, spreading it out.
My father was a great teacher, and I observed one of his classes when I was, I guess, in high school. He was teaching at the university, and I was so impressed at how he loved his subject, and that came through, and how he was able to make very complicated ideas and theories and things be very accessible for all kinds of people. And him and my mom together wrote books about making science accessible to the layman. So that was his life and passion. And then I always had wonderful teachers growing up. I had some of the best teachers growing up. And I also had some very difficult teachers too, like everybody. So they were always an inspiration for me. I loved the classes with those great teachers, and college too. So it kind of was natural. And then of course, Mestre No is a great teacher. Is still a great teacher. So I took on also not only the practice of capoeira, but teaching capoeira and teaching others how to teach, so that we can expand the impact that we have with more children and more people.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about the celebration, because that was, for me, that was like the most powerful thing, the batizado. And I remember you asked me to do snacks and food, and I was like, what is a batizado? I don't want to ask what a batizado is, so I looked it up. But can you talk about the spirit of the batizado? Because I brought some friends with me, and one happened to be a director of a preschool, and she's like, this is amazing. Like, everyone should have this. And so what is the purpose of the batizado for someone who may have a child, or someone who's interested, and they come to the school and they have the whole experience and they experience the batizado? What's the purpose of it? Because it felt like church. It felt like, oh my gosh, this is just amazing.
I have to quote you on that. You have to write that and put that in words.
What, that it felt like church?
Just everything you said.
Well, we're recording, so I'll transcribe.
We have new people that are bringing their children to classes, and when I tell them we have a big event, it's a batizado, it's this and that, they just look at me and they go, oh, okay, he's getting his cord, and then they come away like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like that. So it's kind of like capoeira. You can't really describe it, and when you see it and you see everybody playing and singing together, it's revelatory, it's transformative. People have said that too, just to see it. So a batizado, translated into English, is a baptism. It's not a Catholic, it's not a religious thing. However, it has the experience of one of the most amazing religious experiences, but it's not religious at all. And it means it's an opportunity to welcome new people into the world of capoeira. I guess and the children and they get their first cord. A cord is a colored rope that we make. That's like in karate, they have colored belts. So in capoeira, we have colored cords.
And you make them. I remember Kyle was watching and you were like, come on in. And all the instructors were in there and they were making them by hand. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? It's like right before a party when, the mom is running around, like, putting up the streamers. It was just this energy that was happening.
Yeah, we're very excited to make the colored cords and to graduate to the next one and so forth. So the cords are a way of rewarding and awarding and honoring the hard work that all the students did. It's a way also of acknowledging a person's time and contribution into the art form. When it also serves, sometimes you have a student that it's a final word sometimes on lessons that we're bringing to the class that people may not be getting. For example, you might have two children or two adults where one is especially gifted and agile and musical and seems to pick it up really quick, and they don't come to class much. They come to, oh, this is easy, I can do a cartwheel. Kids say that too. Oh, I can do that, that's easy.
Right.
And or an adult that, like, they've done other martial arts, or they've done acrobatics, and then there's somebody that comes to class that never misses a class, and it takes them years to get a cartwheel.
Right.
Well, that person graduates, and that other person's been missing class, they don't graduate. So sometimes you say, you got to come to class, you need to work on your moves, you need to fix this, and they're in their head, they're like, oh, I'm better than everybody. And then come the batizado, if they don't graduate and that other person that still can't do a cartwheel graduates, they're being honored for how hard they've been working and their progress. Whereas the other person didn't really progress. They come once, twice a month. So you might say that, and they still have their own ideas of their own reality. They're better than others, right? So they don't get a cord.
And speaking of that, I also noticed you bring in children with special needs as well.
We bring in everybody.
Yeah, everyone.
Sometimes we have our children's classes start at 3 years old, and we get calls, emails from parents saying, my little Susie, she's 2.5, and she's doing headstands all day long. She's dancing all day long. She's banging on the table. Is she too young to do capoeira? I said, bring her in. If she can follow the class, she'll be fine. So they bring in a 2-year-old child, and she does everything, or he does everything that we do in the class, follows the other kids, no problem. So, and then of course parents will say, my son has special needs. He's not very physically coordinated. I said, no problem, bring him in. If they like capoeira, you can see that. And we make sure that the other children are welcoming and inclusive, and that they pair up, in schools especially, you see a lot of repeated patterns that they don't address in schools often, and that's partnering. So when you say, get a partner, I can't say the word get a partner, the words get a partner, without all the kids running and hugging their friends. And the ones that hug their friends, there's always a bunch of kids that are left out. Right? So I don't want to see that. That hurt, that doesn't sit right with my heart. So,
and not to interrupt, but to bring it back to the book a little bit, that is like that in the book, The Dandelion, who's alone. And I know when I bought Kyle, he was feeling excluded, even though no one said you can't play, but how his body was betraying him and how he couldn't sit still. He was becoming like that highlighted child, and that was the beauty of your school, Mindful Capoeira, is that everyone was included, no matter if they could lift their leg here or if they can do 5,000 flips. Everyone was welcome. And even at the batizado, you would see some of the kids with the kicks and the flips, and then some that would move very slow, and how the maestres and the instructors were working with their bodies. Because I'm going to put your school link in the description so people can visually see what this looks like, because it's like this incredible movement where one is moving this way, then you have to go under. And when I watched Kyle and the other children doing it, I just thought, oh my goodness, these children, their bodies are gifts. And to be asked to sit all day is just a waste, a waste. Could you imagine if every school started the day with mindful capoeira and then began the lessons? How the brain would start to shift and open up, and you would probably have less behavior problems as well.
I imagine that the brains were designed or evolved to be active, and the body as well. And you think of children sitting all day at a school, and with maybe twice a week they have a gym class that may not even be inclusive. They'll play a game that some kids like and other kids don't, and some kids get picked and others don't, and then you get yelled at for missing the
Right.
ball, these things. So we all went through that, and I feel that, wow, capoeira is naturally inclusive, because I've seen grandmasters in their 70s play 3-year-old children, and everyone just goes crazy. They love it. And I've
It's
seen
beautiful.
children with severe disabilities, severe challenges physically, no arms and legs, playing capoeira. The kids that fall in love with capoeira, and masters that have the compassion to work with those children. Blind children learning to play capoeira by putting bells on the feet and
Wow.
hearing where the bells come from.
That is amazing. And you
Yeah.
also focus on we have a little bit of time, but you also focus on bullying. I know you have the animation, and the reason why I bring that up now with that is because this doesn't just help the body, it supports the self-esteem of the child, which is why I bought my child. It was all about self-esteem for him, because if you constantly are on a child and connecting it to their body and their physicalness, that does something to their self-esteem, so now you're raising their self-esteem as you're showing them what a gift your body is through this amazing movement of culture and history and tradition. And then I want to talk a little bit briefly, if we can, about the animations you do about bullying, because when I saw the animation at the Batizado, I thought, oh my gosh, this is everything. Everyone should see this.
Well, we base our work, especially with the children, on FDR, and that's focus, discipline, and respect. So all the children know F, focus, D, discipline, R, respect, and everything comes from that. So first thing is they have to be, even before they come into the room, I'm out at the door, and I want to make sure their eyes are on me before they come in the room. Because some of the kids come to the room, they're looking past me, they just want to run in there and do their thing. But in that room, in that time, I'm responsible for their learning and their safety and everything like that. So they have to start by eye contact and FDR. So they want to focus on the lesson, focus on the teacher, focus on the move they're working on, and not be distracted. Discipline to practice at home, discipline to stay on track, and then respect, of course. Start by respecting yourself, because you can do anything. Respect the other children in the class, because they want to learn just like you. Respect the teacher, because they're responsible for the space, not because I'm good or big or older or have a master's course, but because they're responsible for the time and space in the room to bring that art to them. Respect the art. Respect the art, because you want to do it the best way you can. That's how you respect something.
And then you know what they also do? They take these tools, I'll say, and then they can bring that not just into their classroom, they can bring that into their home, they can bring that into their relationships. And I began to see Kyle bringing these into, just his everyday life. And when I take him places, people say, oh my goodness, your son, he's so respectful, he's so, and I'm like, I do teach him, but I do know also that he's in a community where this is what is expected. And unfortunately, there are a lot of social gatherings where that's not expected, where you can kind of run around however you want, and you can, cross people's boundaries, and there's no focus, there's no discipline, there's no respect. So this is wonderful. Unfortunately, we have to stop, Maestre, but we are going to come back again with, who's coming back with you next time?
Yes, again, his name is Omi, and
Omi.
he's a contramestre in capoeira, almost a mestre. And his story was similar. His mother was being told by schools that this kid needs to be taken out of the class because he could not sit still.
Oh,
the doctors were saying, we got to put this kid on drugs.
Medication.
And his mother refused and refused, and he went from school to school, doctor to doctor, and she just got more and more upset. She sought some guidance from some people involved in the Orisha.
Don't give it all away. Don't give it all away. Anyways, we want him to come.
Omi will come today, and he and I will also talk about his growth and his now. He's traveling all over the world. So the next time we meet, it'll be Omi and I will share about our stories.
That would be great, because his story reminds me a lot of Kyle, as a child growing up. So, Maestre, just tell us your website, so anyone that is watching this that doesn't know about your school, they can share it.
Wonderful. We have schools around different locations in the country. So if you're in New York, our site is New York Capoeira. New York, spelled out, capoeira.com. And on our website, you can see our other locations like Boston, San Francisco, Ithaca, Charlotte as well.
And I'll put that in the description so that it'll be there.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Maestre, thank you so much for meeting with me. Thank you for everything you've done for Kyle, for families, for just the art. And sometimes here's a secret. When before COVID, when we would actually go to the school, now the school's back open, I would hang out in the hallway and kind of reminisce back to when I was doing capoeira, and I would pretend, and you're always like, come take a class. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it in front of anyone. Maybe I'll take another class, but it's for grown-ups too. You have the parent and child class. There's so much that you're offering, but we'll talk more next time with Omi. And again, thank you, Maestre. I appreciate you so much. And I'm so glad that we crossed paths in this lifetime.
Yes, I'm so glad as well. And thank you for this. As I said, thank you for what you're providing for others through your work as well.
Thank you. And if you're interested in checking out the book that this platform is inspired by, it's called The Blended Garden. It's all about a lonely dandelion that finds his way into a garden of a gardener who was sorting and separating. And finally, she said, you know what? You can be a part of my garden. So if you'd like to get a little more information about that book, share it with your teachers, your friends, your educators, your children. It's on Amazon.com, Kindle, and it's called The Blended Garden, written by Wall. And so again, thank you, Maestre, and I'll see you soon.
Yes, thank you. You have a wonderful week.
Bye. All right, you too.